Hi, today we're going to learn how to do the chainless starting half double crochet stitch. This is a great way to start a half double crochet fabric when you don't want to use a chain to begin the row. Sometimes when you do a chain stitch, it can leave a little gap. This technique is used in the Jolene motif top. The top was originally done in hawthorn, which is a fingering weight yarn, which I have here in the lovely peach melba color. But when we do a tutorial, if we use a fingering weight yarn, it can be really hard to see the stitches. So I'm not going to do the tutorial in the fingering weight hawthorn. Instead, I'm going to use the wool of the Andes in bulky, so we've got a nice big stitch that you can see. So I made a little half double crochet swatch. I only did 5 stitches, so it really is a small swatch. But basically what I want you to see is that when you start a standard half double crochet fabric and you use a chain stitch, you kind of have this big hole on the end where your chain is. So here's my chain, and you can see there's kind of a gap between the chain and then the first stitch. Same thing down on this end. Here's my chain and here's my stitch, and I kind of have this big hole here. On this row, I did the chainless starting half double crochet stitch, and you can see how it really filled in that space, so there's less of a gap. It's a nice alternative if you're concerned, especially if it's a garment and you're concerned about there being any sort of a gap or a space. This is just a nice alternative technique to use when you start the row instead of doing a traditional turning chain. It's also super simple, it's not a lot to learn, and it wouldn't be a hard adjustment to use this instead. Let's do the technique. Normally, when you go to start your half double crochet fabric or any crochet fabric, you will either chain and then turn, or you can turn and then you chain, but you create a chain stitch to start the next row of fabric. And you can see I've got a chain stitch here and I kind of have a gap here, but on this row, because I did our chainless starting half double crochet, there's less of a gap. So let's recreate that. So what you're going to do is you're going to elongate your loop to the size of a half double crochet stitch. Because I already have a fabric going in my little swatch, I can basically see how tall that half double crochet stitch is. On the first row, if this is your first row, it's a little bit harder to figure out, and you kind of have to eyeball and guess how tall the stitch is going to be. But pull up the loop to about the size of a half double crochet stitch, and you can always tighten the loop down if you think it's too tall. You're going to take your hook, you're going to go underneath that loop. In this case, I don't have quite enough. So you're going to go underneath so that it looks like you have 2 loops on the hook. Make sure you're holding on to that elongated loop nice and tight with your index finger. You're going to yarn over, and then you're going to pull this loop through, and as I pull it through, you'll see I sort of created a hole between the working yarn and the elongated loop. You can also take this opportunity to tug the yarn, which will shrink down the length of the elongated loop if you think it's too tall. So now I've got 2 loops on the hook. I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull through both of those loops, and that is going to complete my starting half double crochet stitch, that chainless one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to complete this row with half double crochet stitches. And then I had started the previous row with that half double, with the chainless half double crochet stitch. So I'm actually working back into that stitch for the last one, and you work into it just like you do any other stitch. So you'll just go underneath the top 2 loops, yarn over and pull through. So let's do that again. We're going to turn to so that we're working back across the row. We're going to elongate the loop just a little bit so that it's the height of a half double crochet. We're going to twist our hook so that it is underneath, and it looks like we have 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull that loop back through. And again, it's going to go through a space that's created by the working yarn and the loop. And you can tug this tighter if it feels like it's too loose. You'll have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both of those loops to complete the stitch, and then work your way back across the row. And then again, when you work into the stitch, you're going to work into it just like you do any other half double crochet stitch, working under the top 2 loops. And then that completes that, and let's do it one more time. So we'll turn to work back across our row, pull the loop up to elongate it, go underneath the loop so it looks like you have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, and pull through that little gap that you created, and then yarn over and pull through the 2 loops that are on the hook to complete the stitch, and then work your way back across the row as whatever is called out for in your pattern. Again, this is just a swatch, so we only have 4 stitches. And then I worked into the last stitch. And when I put this down, you can see how that starting chainless half double crochet just sort of fills in the space. It creates a more full fabric as opposed to you sort of have this gap where we've got the turning chain. It just creates a fuller, more dense fabric. It's nicer for garments, anything that you want to be a little less holey. So that's it. That's how you do the chainless starting half double crochet stitch. Until next time, happy stitching.